everyone, welcome back to AMTV News. I'm your anchor, Topher Morrison. It is Tuesday, May 14th, 2013, and I thought I had finally put this story to bed, but it keeps developing. Finally, after CNBC's Kudlow report, Catherine Herridge, Geraldo Rivera of Fox News, and Glenn Beck of GBTV, and mind you, after the story had been vetted and teased by many in the alternative media, including yours truly and AMTV's Christopher Green, Rand Paul, a sitting U.S. senator, suggests once again last week, this time to CNN's Aaron Burnett, what Benghazi may have really been all about.
I never have quite understood the cover-up or if it was intentional or incompetence, but something went on. I mean, they had talking points that they were trying to make it out to be about a movie when everybody seemed to be on the ground telling them it had nothing to do with the movie. I don't know if this was for political reasons. I've always actually suspected, although I have no evidence, that maybe we were facilitating arms leaving Libya, going through Turkey into Syria.
He asked someone else this question too.
And there is a certain amount of culpability to the worst tragedy since 9/11, and I'm glad you're accepting this. Now my question is the U.S. involved with any procuring of weapons, transfer of weapons, buying, selling, anyhow transferring weapons to Turkey out of Libya?
To Turkey? I will have to take that question for the record. Nobody's ever raised that with me.
Ignorance, evidently, is truly bliss.
To Turkey?
It's been in news reports that ships have been leaving from Libya and that they may have weapons. And what I'd like to know is the annex that was close by, were they involved with procuring, buying, selling, obtaining weapons? And were any of these weapons being transferred to other countries, any countries, Turkey included?
Well, Senator, you'll have to direct that question to the agency that ran the annex.
It has recently been revealed that this story may not have garnered much traction over the last 8 months since the Benghazi consulate attack because of three close media relationships. As you can see, the conflict of interest is glaring. Specifically, however, is the connection between CBS's David Rhodes and Ben Rhodes, President Obama's deputy national security advisor and the one responsible for revising the Benghazi talking points 12 times. Now, Ben Rhodes is known by many as the architect of Obama's drone policy, the 74 wars large and microscopic in which the U.S. is currently involved, including all our Middle East machinations. And he is also responsible for liaising between intelligence agencies charged with the fun covert stuff in general. But it looks as though the Obama administration is losing its covert war in Syria, as the Syrian army has effectively cut off rebel supply lines from Turkey, Lebanon, and Jordan, forcing rebel groups to resort to classic tactics of terror throughout Damascus and greater Syria. These desperate attacks have failed to demoralize Assad's forces and have metastasized and spread beyond Syrian targets in an apparent attempt to draw in anyone who would tip the scales. For example, the recent attempted downing of a civilian Russian airline carrying 159 passengers could have possibly shaken Moscow's support for Damascus. This also could explain the massive bombings in Turkey over the weekend, the largest in recent history, which left 46 dead, while Ankara claims, after exacting confessions from 9 suspects with alleged connections to Syrian intelligence, it's hard to see how escalating tensions with a powerful NATO member would help Bashar al-Assad in his quest to retain power. This isn't the first time this terror pattern, more closely resembling the tactics employed by the terror group al-Nusra Front than conventional Syrian tactics, has provided Turkey with a reason to engage Assad. A bombing killed 12 people and injured 28 on the Turkish side of a rebel-held Syrian border crossing on February 11th, an incident Turkish intelligence also tied to the Syrian government.
Forces loyal to al-Assad pushed through rebel lines and seized the town of Otaiba, east of Damascus, April 24th. This loss severed the rebels' supply lines into an area of Damascus known as Eastern Ghouta, from which the rebels have staged heavy attacks on the regime forces. This campaign was followed by a loyalist operation to rid Damascus's Jobar neighborhood of rebel forces April 26th. The battle for Jobar and Otaiba is still underway, but if the loyalist forces succeed, they will have nullified the rebel gains made around Damascus in the past few months. The recent bombings in central Damascus do not indicate an advance in rebel capabilities, as similar and even larger attacks in the capital have been executed since early 2012. However, they are likely an attempt by anti-regime forces to demonstrate that despite some reversals of rebel gains, they still have the ability to strike at the heart of the loyalist-controlled and heavily guarded capital city. Although anti-regime fighters still have the ability to carry out large-scale bombings and continue to control swaths of territory, especially in the north and east, the recent rebel gain reversals indicate that al-Assad's forces are still very much intact, powerful, and effective.
As Stratfor mentioned, loyalist militias, especially Lebanese Hezbollah, is an essential element in securing the Orontes River Valley, one of the most important crossroads in Syria. With this in mind, Israel's recent second round of airstrikes against an alleged shipment of Iranian missiles destined for Hezbollah, albeit a typical antagonist of Israel, could very well have been, in this case, targeted because of Hezbollah's effectiveness in stymieing rebel gains rather than because they posed any imminent threat to Israel itself, although it's a great excuse. Now, in developments abroad, the new Secretary of State John Kerry suffered a very public and embarrassing snafu in Russia. Today it was revealed after his trip to Moscow that a third secretary at the U.S. Embassy in Moscow, Ryan Fogel, was arrested by Russian counterintelligence FSB after attempting to recruit a Russian intelligence agent to work for the CIA. His offer was potentially millions of dollars plus bonuses for specific information. How Fogel was nabbed is still unclear, but perhaps this letter, replete with instructions, a CIA Dropbox disguised as an innocuous Gmail address, and one terrible blonde wig tipped them off. But the question is, why was Secretary Kerry in Moscow in the first place? It could have been to negotiate the release of Fogel, or it could have been spent discussing what bilateral treaties Barack Obama had broken, funneling guns into a Russian ally in hopes of a Syrian coup d'etat. Maybe it was both. But what this highlights, for anyone paying attention that is that U.S. embassies are, at all times, potential extensions of U.S. clandestine operations. As the Wall Street Journal noted with respect to Benghazi, the U.S. non-consulate was, quote, diplomatic cover for a CIA annex nearly a mile away and their gun-running operation, which unfortunately for 4 Americans may have backfired. The Americans were not disavowed, but a rescue mission was obviously not an option either. Next time someone tears down and burns a U.S. flag at some embassy abroad, let's not ask why and start asking the right questions. Capturing every corner of the alternative media, watch AMTV News Monday through Friday. Follow me on Twitter @AMTV News and like us on Facebook @GreenWaveTV. Find my source material and more videos like these at AMTV Media and greenwave.com. Both are part of the AMTV network. This is AMTV News, the voice of independence.